In the previous lesson, we saw how to create the Antelope module and how to create also the PYZ Antelope Propel file. Before adding these columns to the Antelope's Propel file and the table's definition, we have to first create the Antelope type and Antelope location. Why? Because we have two foreign keys here. We have the location ID and the type ID. So first we have to create these small tables so that we have a reference from the PYZ Antelope to these two tables. So let's create Antelope location and Antelope type and their Propel schema file so that we have those tables ready when we're gonna create the Antelopes one. We created the Antelope module by hand and added also the SPYZ Antelope file by hand. Let's see one of the commands that we have in the CLI to create a module and to create the persistence layer of this module. First, let's get inside the CLI by executing Docker SDK CLI. Inside the CLI, we have access to the Spryker commands. The Spryker commands allow us to create different modules for different layers. Let's take a look. If we execute Spryker-dump, then -L and then all as an option, we're gonna see all of the commands that we have available. For example, you can see here, add ZED test suite to code section, add ZED persistence repository method. We have a lot of commands here. If we just filter the commands that have add and then ZED and then persistence, you can see that we can add the persistence entity manager, we can add also the interface, we can add a method to those interfaces, etc. We can create the factory, and we have this command here, add ZED persistence Propel schema. If we execute this command, we're gonna have the module created, the persistence layer created, and also the file. Then we can execute some of the commands to have some other layers. But for the time being, let's use this one and let's take a look at the output. So the way to run this command is with -run, then the name of the command. And then we can pass some options, or we can press command and let the CLI access the questions in order to create the module. So here you can see that it's asking for the name of the module. And in this case, we're gonna begin creating the Antelope location module. So the name of the module is gonna be Antelope location. We don't have it yet, so this folder is gonna be created. Then here, it's asking for the name that we're gonna use in the XML file. In this case, we can use the name of the module underscore, and in this case, it would be Antelope underscore location. Okay, and you can see here the files that are going to be created. The vendor bin console Propel install is going to be executed. You can see that there is an output here with some errors. Don't worry about it. The problem is that the file that was created, there's nothing inside, and that's why we have this error, because the script doesn't verify that this file has a tag inside. So you can see here the naming convention, name of the table with underscore SPY Antelope underscore location schema. And now if we take a look at the Z folder, you can see here that now we have the Antelope location, the persistence layer, we have the Propel and schema folders, and inside we have the XML file. And you can see that we have the database with the same namespaces that we saw before, and now we can begin creating this table. So remember that we're gonna add the location name as varchar, latitude as float, longitude as float, description as text, and then the ID Antelope location as integer. Let's begin by creating the table, and we're gonna use the tag table. Then we're gonna add a name, and we're gonna call it P underscore Antelope underscore location, and that's gonna be also the name of the table. Then we're gonna add allow primary key insert with the value true, then the PHP name, and that's in reality the name of the class that it's gonna be created, and we're gonna call it PYZ Antelope location. We're going to indicate also ID method equals native for the auto increment key creation. So now we have the table defined and we need to define the columns. In this case, we're going to have the location name. So we open a new tag and this time we're going to insert a column tag. Then we're going to give it a name, and in this case it's going to be location name. The type it's going to be varchar, and then we can add also the attribute required equals true so that the column is not null. Let's do the same thing for the latitude and longitude, and the type is going to be float and required also true. We're going to do the same for longitude. Then we need to add also the description column of type long varchar, and the column is not going to be required. And the last column is going to be ID Antelope location. The type integer is going to be required and is going to be primary key, and the column is going to be also auto increment. Okay, we have the table name, we have the PHP name for that table, that's going to be the class name. We have the location, latitude, longitude, description, the ID Antelope location, which is auto increment, required, primary key, and type of integer. Now that we have this file, we have to execute a Propel command in order for Propel to parse this file and all of the files that are present in our project and vendor folder, and the table is going to be created and also the supporting class for these tables. Let's go back to the console, and here we can execute console propel :install. As you can see, we still have the error, and that's because we still have this empty file here in the Antelope that we saw in the previous lesson. So let's remove it, and then we're going to recreate it when the time comes for this table to be created. Okay, let's give it a try again. Perfect. You can see that a migration file was created and then it was executed. And now if we refresh the database here, you're going to see the PYZ_Antelope_location table. You can see here the columns that we defined: location name, latitude, longitude, description, and ID Antelope location. If you don't know how to create a connection to the database here, you can click the plus sign, then data source, and then you can choose MySQL, and then you can give it a name: host, localhost, port by default 3306. Then the username, you can use root, and password secret. You can find, and if you can test the connection here, you can also update the driver, or you can use also a MariaDB driver. You can see here there is recommended by PHP Storm. And then you give it a name here, for example, localhost MariaDB, and you can give here by default one of your databases that are created, in this case EU-Docker. We test the connection and you can see that it works. And here we have the connection ready for us. The Propel command not only created this table, it also created two classes for us. If we take a look inside src orm z, then Antelope location, you can see here that we have two classes. We have the PYZ Antelope location class, and it extends the base class, base PYZ Antelope location, and we find all of the methods in there. And this class we can extend, if we want to, some of the methods or add some other methods inside here. And this is the class that we're going to import to interact with the Antelope location table. And in order to execute the queries, we're going to use the PYZ Antelope location query. If we open that class, and that's an alias for PYZ Antelope location query. If you open that class, you're going to see a lot of methods inside that we can use. So let's take a look at the structure, and you can see here we can sort alphabetically, and you can see that we have filter by description, filter by ID Antelope location, so we can filter data by the columns that we define. Then we also have available a lot of methods like find and then we can pass the condition or find byte and the name of the columns, find one or fail. So all those methods are available for us. And inside the folder base, you can see PYZ Antelope location. We also have a lot of methods here in order to delete a record, to save a new record, update a record, etc. And we're gonna be using those methods during this course. As a challenge now, I invite you to do the same thing for the table PYZ_Antelope_type. So you have to create a table with this name. You have to add the 3 columns, type_name, description, and if we follow the naming convention, we use ID Antelope type, like we did for Antelope's location. Okay? So pause the video and try to create this table by yourself.